Evening, guys. Thank you for joining us. It's a Tuesday night, not as warm as what we're used to, but it's cool. Excuse the pun. Tonight's going to be interesting. We've got a nice, relaxed evening planned. We don't have a strict agenda. I've got a couple of talking points that I've made note of. As you guys saw in the ad, we've got a friend of mine, Marius Marais from Audiologic. I'm not even going to take too much time. What I have realized in the past is I haven't introduced myself once. My name is Cristo. I've had some of the comments in some of the feeds where they just talk about the bearded guy, which is me. My name is Cristo, and I'm going to switch over, and there you can see Marius. How's it, Marius? How you doing?
Good news, yourself, man.
Doing well, man. Thanks for joining. We were going to do this last week, and then the president had a speech, so we postponed it.
Rudely interrupted us with this.
Yeah. So obviously, me and Marius, we were chatting earlier today. We worked out it's roughly about 55 years between the two of us in this little industry of ours. You went professional 91, I went professional 92. And obviously I did a bunch of stuff while I was still a kid at school and to church and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, full-time into the game. From my experience, and I think what's interesting is both my sort of growth into the industry to where I am today and Marius's growth into the industry to where he is, you know, we haven't stopped growing, figuratively or physically. You know, yeah. It's just, it's two completely different journeys. I always like hearing Marius talking about where he started and, you know, what he went through. So I'm going to ask him to share a bit of that. So I think if we can jump into that, and I don't want to go into like a full, you know, point to point, but just a brief introduction of how do you find yourself where you are today and, you know, sort of like the highlight points, you know, since 91.
Okay, I obviously finished school and went through to join the Air Force. I joined permanent force and obtained a technical diploma in aircraft instrumentation. So obviously back in those days, it was all dials and pitot tubes and air pressure gauges that worked analog. Today it's all touchscreen, so it's not something I can actually comment on. But anyway, I got a technical diploma in the aircraft instrumentation. And then in 1991, I started as a freelancer at the State Theatre. Back in there was a guy called Jimi Hendrix, not the Jimi Hendrix, but Jimi Hendrix from Cape Town. He was head of audio. And I kept on hounding him to get in there because, you know, it's just a sound thing from school, doing the garage parties and all that type of stuff. Owning a couple of speakers and a NAD amp, going around with tape decks and turntables, making music. So the passion's always been there. And then obviously being dragged by my folks to some shows at the State Theatre, it kind of really got hold of me and I wanted to be part of this. Started at the State Theatre. I was there. Actually, Revel was my boss. You can believe it. For a while. And then with Charles Smith was there. Steve from Strike Productions. Steve Forster was there. A whole bunch of Ernest Corky, a whole bunch of the old industry guys came from that era. And I was there for what, two and a half years. Then I got a job off in Bloemfontein to run the Pack-Off sound department, the Bloemfontein branch of the Performing Arts. I was there for 18 months. Wasn't really doing too much theatre work. I think I got very bored very quickly. Especially when you're in a big, nicely kitted out theatre and you end up doing weddings on the stage. It was just not my scene. Got bored very quickly, moved back up to Joburg and I started freelancing and then worked for Soundcorp for a while and then freelanced again for a bit and then did a long 8.5, almost 9 year stint with Sound Stylus with Kevin. And then from Kevin, I moved over to Matrix Corporate and Theatre Sound, where I was a partner with Trevor Peters, Eddie Satola and Pam Potgieter. 4 of us ran that well, brand Matrix. And then in 2008, I decided that I want to just start concentrating just on the mixing. You know, it's just like focus just on what I wanted to do. Just be behind a console, just push faders and do what I actually love. And I decided to go on my own. And in 1st of April 2009, I kind of took the leap, and yeah, from there started Audiologic, and we concentrated on consoles and microphones, and then it just evolved into what it is today.
Yeah, tell me about it. It evolves quite quickly. Yeah, when you get stuck into something and you make a decision about it, it's, you know, you never know what the journey is going to end up on. I mean, my thing was obviously my dad was in the audio, got involved at church, started doing monitoring at church. When actually went into installations after when I started working, and I started running rentals and production on the side with some stuff I built myself, and you know, some old gear that I scrounged around out of some old installs that we refurbished, until about 95, when, you know, it started running a little business within that business, which started doing better than I thought, because I mean, I was just running around on the weekends doing jazz gigs in Aldos and Indonesia and everywhere, and then in the week doing installations, and then that evolved, and you know, and then went for a stint. That company was called Satellite Sound, and I left that. Eventually Satellite Sound merged into Meg Productions, which is still running today with Ian Mansfield. I took a job in Cape Town with a church there, became a technical director for 5 years in Cape Town, which was great. It was nice living there for a while, you know, experiencing it, but very happy in Joburg, just all your Cape Town people. And then came back and just jumped back into the whole thing, and made a similar decision to Marius that, look, I'm just going to engineer, I'm just going to freelance. You know, I got involved with the Academy of Sound Engineering, started teaching. And then, you know, what is it now? 13, almost 14 years later, you know, Sound GP as it stands also comes from making the decision, I'm just going to engineer and do what I love, you know, and then you build around that. So it's quite an interesting little paradox that we find ourselves in. I mean, when you start doing things that you love, you start looking for people that work in a similar way, you know, and people that you can relate to. And sometimes when it comes to gear and little bits and pieces, you do end up just acquiring little things, and you think, I'm just going to buy this because it'll help me with that, and this is going to help me with that. And before you blink your eyes, you know, you've employed someone, and then another one, and it gets quite hairy. You know, it's not especially these days with some of the challenges we face, is not the best place to be in from a stress perspective. But you know, I wouldn't change it. I'm very happy where I am today. From a business perspective, we're still in a niche market, but you know, I get to. I mean, if you think about me and you, we worked for a good 2007. I mean, we met first time.
That's what I was just thinking. I think I was sharing an office with Kevin.
You were, yeah, it was Kevin. We did the Mango Groove pre 10-year anniversary tour, because Satellite Sound did the tour. Before that, we went and did a show in East London, in the Buffalo Stadium.
Yes, correct. Yeah,
yeah, and you were helping me on monitors. Still had a bit of curlies on top. I remember that.
A long time ago. This is 22 years now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So that's how long we go back. You know, we crossed paths a couple of times. You know, over the next
1996.
That was 96.
96. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure, that's long ago. And then
we still had competitions with the crew with 30-meter 63 cables around the workshop. And if you remember, you also did a couple of those.
Yeah, no,
Kevin used to rope us into little races when.
Yeah, on the plot there.
Yeah, Chartwell. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. And then I think between 97 and 2007, obviously with me being in Cape Town and some other gigs, we crossed paths a couple of times, but not really connected solidly. And then in 2007, when I came back, you were one of the first guys to give me a break. You know, I think we ran into each other at MediaTek. You were there with Matrix, with the Alcon systems, and we chatted, and then, you know, we kicked off from there. And then for a good, 5-6 years, we did quite a few things together. You know, I was obviously still mainly freelancing, It's before Sound GP really kicked off. And then obviously as Sound GP got busier and busier, it was difficult to just, for myself to book my own private time out as much as I can. But I think we became really good friends. We've bumped our heads many times over the course of the period. I think we've had a good fair share of arguments and things like that. But I mean, it's all healthy, and it just shows you that, you can have long-term relationships and still sit down and chat like this. Although it's normally in Afrikaans, not in English. That's the weird one. Yeah. It's very weird talking to you in English.
Yeah, it is. Just got a message from Dave, which is Dave Tudor.
Yeah.
I can't believe you remembers it. We met each other in 2000 at the Melbourne Mardi Gras. And Dave, I don't know if you're listening, I think we still did, it was Frank Opperman's band that played. Gee, that's a long time ago, man. Can't believe it's that long ago.
Yeah, Bartmann from Adrian, both on the same screen. Yeah. We try.
I've got very few and far between, like my head. So try to keep them together. So it's been fun, man. We've done some serious, if I can use the fun ball breaker gigs, some serious thinking and sweating gigs. As I did with Adrian and all the guys, we did some serious gigs.
Yeah, no, we've had some. I was doing an RF session on last week with MJ, who runs RF Junkies, and he's going through his scanners and his things and all that. And I thought back to myself, we did the one SCO spell we did at Sun City. I think it was 2000 and was it 2010? 10 or 11, somewhere there. We ran 112 channels RF on that show. Don't know if you remember, it was like 76 handhelds. We had 24 headsets on choir. We had belt packs, and then and I think in total I had about 24 systems of IEMs, which is a combination of Shure's, 600s and 700s, and it's before the 900 times, and some AKGs and stuff. And me and Eddie Setole ran. That took us about 3 days to get that RF set up, and him running around the entire, literally, Sun City complex, making notes on who's running what frequencies, and just making it work.
I still remember that day where we rehearsed the whole week, and we hit Friday morning, and they set up in the valley for the checker side of things, and they switched all their RF.
They switched on.
All of a sudden, we had no show.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that.
Yeah, and the same thing. One day we ran a whole week of rehearsals, and then SABC OBs arrive, and we suddenly realize what's going on here, and they come and put their 1 watt CV antenna just through the loading door and just switch it on, and just that Christmas tree just takes out all RF in one sweep, like literally. I think the most hair-raising moment I can think of between the two of us, or with us, is it was you had the VI6, the Matrix VI6 at front of our house. I think it was the first year that we ran the VI6, and you had
with the Midas.
With the Midas on the side, and we rehearsed. We finished at, it was like 3 or 4 in the morning. We had rehearsals at 9. So I remember that morning well, because I left the bowl at 4:30, walked into my room, and there was 2 dudes sleeping in the room, and I had to go back to reception, up and down to finally find a room, and got no sleep. We got back there, and eventually you phoned me on my cell phone. It's like, switch on your talkback. And I'm like, you switch on your talkback, and I've been calling you, and you've been calling me.
Yeah, I'll never forget that.
And then all of a sudden, I just hear Eddie calling me from behind me, Eddie Setole. And I look around, and I just told you on the phone, you need to come here now. And the guys that, remember, I'm not going to name names, but they drove out with the forklift booms extended, and they grabbed all of our mults, which was this far below the screen, and ripped off all the analog, all the Cat 5s, power, everything snapped, and we had no link to front of house.
A Kinea 16 pair analog malt can stretch that far.
Yeah,
I mean, we kept on driving, man. We lost 4 Cat 5s,
4 Cat 5s, 16-way mults, which is all the talkbacks, all our backup lines, everything. And the funniest thing is, while we were standing there trying to figure out now what, and I think you'd already phoned Trevor, for the guys to come bring through some stuff. And we were trying to find some Cat 5, and then Yanni, the director, came through and says, so can we start rehearsals? It was like, we can't, kind of don't have a PA, we don't have any feeds. He goes, no, it's okay, I just need the one mic. And I was like, no, you don't get it. No. There's nothing.
Not working.
Yeah. It took us about 3 hours for a truck to come through from Joburg, and I think we did manage to find some 75-meter Cat 5s that we just ran across the floor temporarily and stuff. But that was quite a interesting.
It was dense. It was like the same. I don't know. I can't remember if you were there when the UPS room.
Oh yeah, caught fire.
Yeah,
it was during one of our dress rehearsals.
Yeah, just bang,
it was bang. Every red light I had went on, and then power went, and then the smoke and the smell came. There was a fire in the power room. It was quite a
interesting question, George. I was asking who paid for the damages. I did. It's a situation there, man. It's a guy that's been working for 20 hours trying to finish some his discipline. I'm not going to say what it was, but he's trying to finish his discipline and get the room clear for final. Well, basically, we went into final dress that night.
Yeah.
On that Friday. And, yeah, it happened, man. It's one of those things. I mean, I was remarkably calm. I mean, it's just one of those things. You stand back, look at it.
Yeah, I mean, blowing your lid doesn't help, everything. And what's nice about that is, and one of the things I made a note of here that I want to talk about that we've had lots of chats about is from a crew perspective, on a gig like that, where that happens, having the crew on board, having the people, having the mindset that when everybody had their roles and, were ready to do things a certain way, and then we all had to just pull together and fix, and pull things through, and having the right guys in place. If you think about Kenson and those Oaks, just head down.
If I go back, think about the crew, especially on that gig, we can name the beast, Scospel, all the years we did that. I mean, I started that thing, I think Philippe did the first one. It was still a track show. And then after that, I came in when they had the band, and then the next year they added the orchestra, and it was a very quick growth. But I still believe today the crew that was on that gig from day one, I mean, it changed through the years. I mean, it was Aiden, it was Curtis, Khotso, then Nathan. It was a progression, and some of the guys went away and some of the guys stuck. But I mean, that after, how many years was that? 14 years?
Yeah, I think I was on monitors for 7 of those.
Yeah, the last couple I split up. It was Revel.
Yeah.
On vocals, monitoring, and Stan Schiller. They still came in and did the rhythm section. So it's just too much work for one monitor guy. So we kind of split things up. But it was huge. I mean, we turned about 130, 140 live inputs.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back to when I got involved, 2007, but at that point, just getting 128 channels, there wasn't a single console that could do that all by itself with all the extra that you needed to do. You ran 2 consoles in front of house. I ran 2 consoles on Monitorland, and if you think about the progression of audio, in those days, 48-channel racks were sort of the norm still. 64 was just becoming sort of a thing. So a lot of the stuff, I had 48 on a rack, you had 64 on a rack. So, deciding what I'm getting off buses and what I'm getting on direct lines and all that kind of work, and running. I think the one year I ran 43 monitor feeds between the 2 consoles, and on doing that on profiles, one console can't do it. So that was split across 2 consoles and matrices between consoles and all that kind of stuff. And, but it's not because it was cool. That's what the gig needed, and you running. I remember the way you laid out front of house. It wasn't like, oh, this is nice, I'm going to enjoy this. You had a certain layout because the show called for a certain workflow and a response, and the ability to be hands-on.
Little things that I remember from those days, especially before we went digital. The first digital console I actually used on Scospel was SI3. It's one I still had a deal with Soundcraft when I was the ambassador back then, and they just launched it. The VIs were out, but the SI was the new range that came out. They wanted to promote it. No, that was before. I'm getting confused now. It was the SI3 was the first one that we got in, and I ran that with MH4 and the Midas at front of house. And then we went from that to VI6 and Midas. And I still remember doing the first time they tried it in Cape Town, but it wasn't called Scope, it was called Kaapse Jewel, and it was in the Good Hope Center. What's the bicycle place?
Yeah, the Velodrome.
Velodrome, in the Velodrome.
Yeah, the absolute worst acoustic venue in the country.
Exactly, and we flew every single Alcon's box in SA in that room, and it was still there was two MH4s, MH3, and a Series 5 on front of us in a complete horseshoe, and I still couldn't get from one side to the other to get to solos. It was how things have changed from a mixing from an audio perspective, from mixing and having individual faders, not having banks, not being able to flip, not being able to group stuff onto a console for ease of access. What we achieved those days, I still sit back some days and think, well, why did I do that? How do we actually do that? How do we achieve that?
I mean, I can remember going back. I mean, it was Freedom Day yesterday. I remember doing, for years, I did the Freedom Day festivals at the Union buildings. And it would be, we set up through the night. It's freezing cold. You come the next day and it's cultural. So it's something of everything. And I have my set area where I've got my pen and my cassettes. Where I'm winding tracks, and queuing up tracks with the headphones, making sure everything is there, and then you've got your set list and you've got your paper with all your different, sound checks that you've dialed in so you can do quick changeovers. And, but back then that was it. We wouldn't moan about it. There was the only way to do it, You relied on your crew to do their things and your patching, and then there was no snapshot or recall. It's changeover, so head down. Work through the desk, get the cassettes in, get ready, MC mics open, DJs running while you're doing all of that, and then next band, It was fun.
I can't remember the names of it. If you recall the era of the DAT bands, the 66, doing a gig in Guyana, and I think the headline act was, under correction, guys, I think it was Trompies.
Yeah.
Was the headline act from 4 to 6 or 5 to 6 in the morning, the last band. I mean, it was a brewery's gig. It's a brewery's gig, so obviously there's a lot that goes with a brewery gig. And then the headline act decided not to pitch. And the same night, the only DAT player I had decided not to work.
Oh.
And I mean, that was some very interesting times, man.
Yeah, no, I remember doing a rally at the Union buildings. What was that poet? Maybe I can't remember his name because he went to jail. But he arrived to do a speech, and it wasn't planned. And I happened to have the DAT machine in the rack because it was racked, in front of house rack, had all your bits and pieces, and it was speeches, and it was a little band, and then someone came running around with the DAT, and he had a 180 DAT. Now, don't you remember with the issues with the long DATs? Not all machines could handle that tension, so they would start playing, and the spool reel would over tighten or get too loose, and then it would stop. And there's nothing wrong with either the machine or the DAT, but the two are just not. And this happened a minute into his performance. Stopped, rewind, tried again, and it happened again and again, and eventually, like, everybody is just like, it wasn't planned. It wasn't on the. Fortunately, I actually wished at that moment I didn't have it in the rack, so I could have said no, but I tried it, and then it's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. Get that day, man.
I mean, I remember you were talking just before we went on air. Now we talking about a gig in the Standard Bank Arena. I did a Youth Day festival in there, 95, somewhere there, and I had, if I remember, it was actually Stylist PA. Yes, it was. It was we had wasn't Delta Max. It was the Delta Max. That was the Delta early mid-90s. Was the Delta Max.
Stylist. It was the Delta Max were the main, and then with MTL2s, and then we went over to Alpha.
Yeah, so it was the Delta Max up, and we had, because it was the 15-inch EV wedges, the 1502s. Remember those?
Yeah.
The nice little light ones. And we had a support band up, and then it was my memory's going. It was one of the first gigs I did with my PA. My JBL Array PA. Now it's coming back to me. The 1502s and stuff I rented in. And we had the support band up. MC came out. And while the MC goes, I start hearing these firecrackers. I'm thinking, what's all these firecrackers? And I look down and my DSP unit is going click, 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 and it's the PA. And poof, PA gone. 16,500 kids in the room. International act about to come on. And it's like, now what? Only saving grace I was running monitors from front of the house. So I had a rack of graphic EQs. And I had a handful of Y splits. So I remember jumping in the back, building a crossover out of graphic EQs and everything, and just, get the gig going again.
Sure, the learning curve you go through and stuff that goes wrong. I mean, back in the day in the State Theatre, I still remember doing a gig with Michael Hankinson. It was an orchestra, but back in the day we overhead mic'd everything. It's not a lot of microphones. And then there was a reel-to-reel, a Tascam B33 reel-to-reel. The two reels in, and the first half was on a reel, and then interval I got into a thing of changing, rewind your first act, put it in its box, take the next reel out, put it in, get ready, put your leader, line it up. And then all that had on was the first time ever I worked with click. The left channel was click that went down to stage onto a headphone amp for Michael, and the drummer had click. And the other side, I can't remember what the other side was. When we did this gig, now you're getting into a routine, you're getting relaxed. First half done. One walk away, take a break, whatever. Okay, we're ready for first act. Hands on faders, let's go. You turn to the reel-to-reel to hit play, and there's act one, completely rolled off on the, and you go, okay, now. Remember those situations, huh?
Yeah, there's no quick fix there.
No.
Oh man.
No recall buttons.
No, those are the days. I mean, look, even today, I was having a discussion with someone the other day, and I remember a comment. I was actually doing a demonstration on the Avid SXL, and I think if you spoke to me or you in, 1995, 2000, about, either your Studio or my VI SXL, of what the consoles would be able to do, it would be mind-boggling. We couldn't comprehend the level of integration that would come into our field, at the speed that it's come in. And I don't know if I'm more impressed with the technology or the fact that we figured it out. But anyway, that's another discussion.
Yeah. If I had to go back in the days of Series 5s and the Midas, the Heritages, and you go back, and you had a glimpse into the future, and this is what you'd be able to, you'd probably ask yourself, why would you want to do that?
Yeah.
Because you grow, you're in a rhythm. That's how you work. I mean, you remember how on the old analog consoles, your preamp started to go from 1 to 3. Your kick snare always used to go first, the preamps on those analog consoles, because they got hit the hardest.
Yeah.
And then now you just move stuff around wherever you want it. I mean, I got into analog later on, just like move stuff around, put the kick drum to get a better sound on a later channel.
Which is fresher.
Because everybody's been hammering that first channel's preamp for years. So it's like, if you had to rewind, you'd probably think, why would you want to do all that? It sounds complicated, and it probably was complicated until we all figured it out for ourselves.
Yeah, but like I was saying, and I was doing that demonstration with the SXL, and I was showing some of the control sections, like I've showed you. I set up that simple one for you that detects the clips, on your orchestras and stuff. Just
that's brilliant.
And I was doing something else where there's on your lead mic, at a certain fader position, you would have pre-post switching on an effects end, and you would have maybe a filter set change, like your high-pass filter change, because the guy's going into a speaking scenario or a singing scenario. And that if you've got a lead artist, when they're singing away and then they talk between songs and they drop the mic to their chest and whisper, you can't just, you have to be working on the channel, unless you had a second channel set up and you would switch between, which you could do as well. And I was showing him some stuff that, and I had control actions set up where when the artist does that and I move the fader, it does a bunch of stuff for me, which is stuff that I anticipate. And he goes, oh, so you don't have to mix anymore. And I just laughed, So I'm like, well, no, what it does is these days with the toys we've got, I find that if you set it up right, and we can speak about pre-production and the importance of planning, which, after doing how many gigs, we still sit down, start with a clean channel list and all that, and we do planning. But now you get to a gig, and if you've got all these little bits and pieces, like, for example, that control section I set up for you, if you've got 80 mics on an orchestra, and you've always got to keep an eye on the orchestra, because if someone puts a chair on a cable or something, or Velcro or whatever, you got to find it quickly, because that comes through the PA 6 times the level of what you had the violin at, so it's loud. But if I set up a control feature, when that happens, you know, it just finds a channel and mutes it. You know, and it brings it to your attention so you can see it. You can get on talkback, you can tell the crew, they can fix it, you can unmute it. And it happens in a matter of a second. But what that does for you as an engineer, it doesn't take the responsibility or the pressure off you from the technical perspective, but it gives you the ability that knows that I've put in place things that'll give me breathing space for my creativity. You know, because at the end of the day, you want to enjoy the gig. You want to mix the gig. You want to have fingers on faders that are helping you develop the gig and mixing, and not panicking about what can go wrong. And panic's the wrong word. I mean, in the times where we had to be aware of stuff, you would actually, you know, the way you lay out your desk and how you put things on layers is even depending on the gig, anticipating potential scenarios. You know, with digital, there's a lot of that stuff that becomes easier because the gear can start helping you achieve certain things. You still have to set it up. You still have to understand the workflow that you want to get into. I mean, because if I show you a feature, you're not going to use it just because it's cool. You know, you see a feature and you go, oh, I can use that X, Y, Z. You know, there's something in your head that you can connect it to, and it'll help you achieve a result from a technology perspective. What's your view on that?
Oh, well, it's the way the consoles are laid out now. Just to get back what you said earlier. Now you got a console you work on. Back in the day when M7 was the thing, and you had VR6, and as it progressed, every engineer I've met, no matter who he is, gets into a flow that does things the way that suits him or that person that's mixing. So you might not always agree with the way it is. It's like a lot of people use matrices. I'm not a big matrix fan. I know you are. I prefer to mix on VCAs. I have my left right on my left right. I have my subs on an aux, so I can control how much I send. You know, it's just a workflow thing. At the end of the day, when you stand behind a console, you got to set it up in a way that it works for you. You do your routing, you do your channel allocation. I mean, if you want to do, I've done it a lot of times where you double patch channels, especially on the Studio and on the S6L, or you not double patch, you double layer a channel, so the same channel comes up in the same place no matter where you go on the console, which layer you go into. Because you know that's a solo mic that gets used often. That's your first violin or your principal violinist. You need to get that fader quickly. You don't want to go look for it. I don't want to put in a special VCA because I don't want to waste. You know, I've got all my firsts on one VCA. I don't want a separate VCA now that takes up space on the console. So it's just a workflow thing. It's the way you adapt and set up a console to work for you.
Mm. Yeah, it's a thing that, and I ask this question when I speak to students and some other people, or someone shows me something, you know, look at this is cool. I'm like, the question that I ask is why? Whatever you do on your console, for example, I mean, I know we've worked together. The first time you set up the S6L, I did it with you, and I asked a lot of questions to get what it is you want.
And then get into my head.
Yeah, because I get into your head, and then if I asked, and any one of those feature sets I set up for you, if I had to ask you why, you would explain it exactly like you explained it now. Not because, you know, there's a definite reasoning behind every little element. And there's hundreds of elements when you start setting up your mix, when you're dealing with big things. You know, some of the stuff you don't even think about anymore. It's just reflex in terms of how you know, even the order of your auxes as it goes to effects. You know, you get into a pattern that, you know, if I grab 3, it's always a guitar reverb. If I grab, you know, 1 is always my main vocal. Some people go 1 is always my snare. You know, it depends on how you work. And I can easily step up and go, no, this console can do X, Y, Z, and set it up like this, it'll work like a bomb. And that just alienates you, you know, because then you're going to wait till I leave and then you're going to fix it anyway.
Another thing that I've found, when you move away from the environment that you and I are used to, well, when you got the rehearsal time, is the band touring, when you hit the festivals, when you get Makufe with the band, and you were 5 minutes late and they kicked your sound check time out, and you know, you walk, there's only an LS9. You got to ask the guy, how do you do this? What have you done there? And then work on what is that. You got to be adaptable. Things are not when you're in a set environment with rehearsal time and you got some time. Well, we don't always have all the time that we need, but a lot of the gigs you do have a bit of rehearsal time to set those things up beforehand and fiddle in rehearsals to get stuff, the workflow right for you.
Yeah.
But a lot of times you don't. And that's where I've bumped my head a couple of times where guys have done stuff on a console and routing wise on a PA in a festival environment where you go, why did you do that? You know, because I mean, you can't go change stuff because you've got a combination of input cards, you've got analog ins and then stage boxes combined and all kinds of stuff. And it's hard patching to change stuff. So you've got to work with what's basically on the desk. But also getting to a workflow in your head of the way you want it, it helps you in that environment, actually being able to adapt quickly. Because I mean, I don't know if you'll agree with me, all the digital consoles now, the large formats from Digico to Avid, doesn't matter what you use, the basic principles are there, same as the analog days. The basic principles hasn't changed. The workflow has changed.
Yeah. And
there's a lot of little shortcuts. I mean, Studio, for instance, has got 3 or 4 different ways of everything that you want to do. They created 2 or 3 or 4 ways because they know guys are different. And they've asked the questions, how would you want this to work? From a whole bunch of live guys. And they all give their input and say, okay, this guy wants this guy. And then they give you the options to make the desk work for you. And that's what the SXL is exactly. You can do whatever you want, personalize it in such a way that it works for you.
Yeah, and the same with the like an ST12 or something with the macro switches and all the different ways you can access it all. But it comes down to your, and I've said this a couple of times on these chats, you know, end of the day, your most powerful tool is you. And you can keep sharpening up, you can keep developing, you can keep learning. I mean, I've never been scared of technology and new stuff. I'm always trying stuff, but I try it in an environment where I'm in control. If I'm going to go to a gig where I know there's time factors and all that, I'm not going to go in there with brand new gear. I need to go with something that I know. If I've got time to develop and understand stuff, you know, I'll grab it, whether it's recording technology, mixing technology, you know, networking, all these kind of things. You know, I try and push the boundaries because at the end of the day, it helps me deliver to my clients. Because if we can, I mean, if you think about someone like James with Dante, you know, James Bathensworth and Thatch Music is running Thatch Music and he's doing MD work and he's phenomenal in what he does. But if we didn't educate, and I say that because that's exactly what we did. Because I remember the first time I had a conversation with Dante with him, unfortunately I wasn't the first person. He had an experience with someone and it flopped horribly, and he was just happy that he had his little rack mount there because Dante doesn't work. And when I mentioned it to him, he's like, no, that doesn't work. It's never going to work for me. And
now he's jumping it.
And I had a long conversation, and within that same production we were talking, I convinced him to give me the chance, and I explained to him how we achieve it and what the importance of Dante is and what is Dante and what is IT knowledge and all these things. He went and did research like he always does, and now it's on his rider. But now as an Ableton user, it's given him the option of phenomenal workflow within his sphere. You know, he can throw you with 18 tracks, 2 tracks, 40 tracks, you know, whatever what the production requires, and as well as recording back and all these kind of things. So, you know, just embracing technology, but you have to know, because I mean, if I stuck my head out and force him, you know, to do that, and then I go, ooh, that wasn't supposed to happen, or oops, I don't know, you know, that takes all the wind, and you don't have the respect of that person ever again, you know.
Yeah, if you take James now, what you just said is he's running with it now. I mean, we've got conversations now before events. He says to me, you know the room, how much separation do you need? And then I can tell him, listen, you got a low end issue in the room. Can you give me the low end separate, like on the drums? Can you split the stuff? And if he can, he usually accommodates, you know. So we end up now, instead of running 8 tracks like we used to, what did we run at MVCAs? We ran 18 tracks.
I think it was 18, yeah. 18 that was the tracks. Last gig before lockdown.
Exactly, before they cut us.
Yeah, multi-choice view, Mzansi Viewer Choice Awards.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was fun.
That was fun, yeah.
Yeah, strong words.
I want to touch on something that you brushed on it earlier.
Yes.
To come to my experience in the industry. I had a lot of thought today, sitting down, thinking back on the last 30 years of my life, where it's gone and what I've done and whatever. And you know what pops up constantly is people, crew, clients, memories. And, you know, it's just knowing that I'm going to sit and have a chat and some people's going to listen in. I thought about all the people that I've worked with in my career. It's like everybody added a little something to the bigger picture. And the young guys of today, if I can teach anybody something, it's humility and tapping into knowledge, working with people, working with other engineers, not criticizing. Like there's a lot of nastiness going around in the younger guys, who's better than who. It's not about that. And if you're really good at what you do and your attitude is right, you'll make it. But if I had to rewind, the people that made my life easier in those non-sleep nightmare gigs where you got nauseous before the opening song, if I had to go back, the guys that made it work was the crew.
Yeah.
Was the crew, the hand-picked guys, each doing his duty, whatever it might have been. I mean, at one stage we were running, 20 crew on Scospel? I mean,
yeah.
Then you get back to Idols, the crew was up to 8 guys at one stage, and then a gig now like Starlight Classics, we're sitting with 14, 16 audio guys.
Yeah, you made a statement now, hand-picked, because that's something I wanted to touch on. I made a note here, you know, and I don't know about you, but I get emails and CVs non-stop. Even on these streams, you know, I get personal messages, guys that send me, listen, I'm so-and-so from here and here. Is there work? Is there work? Is there work? Can I come work? You know, and obviously you want to give people as much opportunities as you can, but based on the work that we do, I can't go into a gig with, you know, I can get some guys to come help on a gig, but they're not necessarily the crew. You know, box pushers and all that, that's different. But once you start running your show crew, you know, those are the guys you're talking about. That's got to have
the gears in the gearbox.
Yeah.
You know, it's I look at it that way. Let me put it this: there's two people that I, in my career, reckon is the most important people. Is firstly the crew, because they're the guys that help you put this thing together. I mean, if you got a despondent crew, an unhappy crew, you're going to battle halfway through the gig. The second thing is the musicians on stage. To me, everybody else, from the client to the audience, comes way back in the line. I don't really care what they... If you stand behind a console, you got a good crew that makes things happen, and you got to trust that comfort zone that you're in, because you know your crew's got your back on stage. Everybody that needs to place a microphone or that does pedal changes or whatever it is that he does, when that happens, brilliant, the show will work. You add on top of that your musos, the guys that actually employ you in some instances, or that you are employed to carry their message across, because that's what we do.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we there as a medium between the band, the orchestra, the vocalist, and the audience. And we got to portray what they're putting on stage in the most true way we possibly can. So my philosophy is simple when it comes to that. When you got a good gig, you know that your crew is good and your band was happy. From the guy that plays the cowbell to the guy that does the most intricate guitar solo.
Yeah.
Every single person counts. And if you got that, and that's where I think a lot of my joy in my career came from, the relationship with other people in the industry, the thought process behind gigs, not trying to, I mean, we sat down for nights trying to replot line lists and stuff to make it work for monitors in front of us. And you know, it's time spent. And then once you got the people in place to make that big machine run smoothly, and you got a happy band, you got a good show.
Yeah.
The people, crew-wise, and like you said, handpicked. Through the years, you get to know, okay, that guy's really good at this, and then you'll use him in that until he excels, and that's a natural process. He does something for a while, and then you say, okay, now it's not a waste in what he did, but you can actually excel him into the next
developing,
level. Developing into something else, and then you give him the gap, and the guys go forward.
And the development curve is something that I spoke about the other night. It's not like box pusher, cable roller, you know, stage hand, backline tech or monitor tech, you know, the front of house. It's not a line to front of house. You know, that's not production. You get guys that that excel and shows excellence in a certain direction, and that's where they want to be. You know, if you're on monitors and that's what you do, like Revel, you know, he can do anything. You know, you can put him behind a console and put him in front of a house, put him record, whatever. You know, but he loves doing monitors, and that's not a degrading position. You know, and vice versa.
Yes.
For guys on RF like MJ is or like Eddie is, that's what they do. That's what they're good at. If there's guys that are stage managers, if there's guys that stick to backline, you know, you got to give people opportunity. And when you give youngsters exposure, that's what I found. You give them opportunity, give them exposure, and you listen to them, and you observe. You'll see where people work and where they're good at and where they will flourish in. You know, sometimes, because not everybody wants the pressure of having that, you know, being the guy to push the button or being the guy that's in charge. You know, some of them really enjoy, you know, the technical element. Like, you know, Kyle with PA tuning and, you know, all these different guys that are focusing on a niche, you know, and all of them have got a skill set. You know, like you were saying, it's the gears or with the mixers, they're all basic, simple principles. And I use a metaphor like I did last night or the night before, where it's like driving a car. If you can drive, you get into a car, you don't have to figure out how to drive if you go from a Mercedes to a VW. But what gets you is the buttons are in different places, you know, the feel of the gearbox, or, you know, it's not like, oh no, I can't drive because everything's different. You can still drive. You might flick on the wipers instead of the flicker, and you'll do it once or twice, you know, and, you know, if the clutch is in a different point and brake. But at no point during that experience of figuring out the differences do you forget how to drive or lose sight of your destination. You know, and that's what when you talk about adapting. If you've got a band on stage, you know what you need to do, and you're at a festival and you've got, you know, a Yamaha instead of what you've asked for, or something else, or it's slightly smaller than you need, you have to adjust a little bit and adapt and deliver to your client. And I made a comment to follow up on what you said. You know, there's a lot of engineers out there, and there's a lot of music guys and producers. When we're at front of house, we are not producers. So it's not our job to sit there and produce the band and bring us into the mix. You know, there will always be a flavor. I mean, we add characteristics on how we perceive hearing and how we want to achieve things. But our duty is primarily communicating what they're doing to the people. You know, and if it's a good band, like you say, they do most of the work for you anyway. You know, if you do your technical, you're capturing your miking and all that kind of stuff, get your gain structures right, get your control in. You know, you sit there and you like hardly do anything the whole night, and it's just like, you know, you got goosebumps constantly. And after the gig, the band gets all the praise. That's for me like the perfect gig. You know, you get other scenarios where you've got exactly the same technical, you've put in the same effort, and you're panel beating this thing to death. Because what's coming at you is, you know, it's not that great. So it's perspective, and understanding your position and what you're there to do is key. You know, I use the example sometimes, if you've got kids, you've seen the movie Shark Tale. You know, when the little fish goes into the boss's office and asks for a raise, and he rolls out the scroll, and he says, well, here's the list of importance, and right at the bottom under the plankton poop, you know, is him. You know, you're at the bottom of the list. You know, and if you approach it from that perspective, understand that we are from a serving perspective. You know, we can have fun, but you're not going to get offended when you don't get the praise. You're not going to get your nose out of joint or want to grab the spotlight or anything. You know, if you can't go away from a gig with goosebumps and enjoying yourself and no one says a word to you, the problem is not with the people. Now, that's my opinion.
No, well, that's the thing. It's like you said, we're in a service line. We're not there. I mean, I've got a pretty solid philosophy. Sound's not mentioned. You had good sound. Another thing is, if you walk away from a gig and there's nothing you would change, I think you got a problem as an engineer. Because I haven't done that show yet.
Yeah, me neither.
It doesn't matter if you do 8 runs or 2 weeks or 2 weekends or whatever it is, multiple shows, once off, got 2 weeks worth of rehearsals for one show, and you're gonna get it. I've never walked away from a gig feeling satisfied.
Yeah,
but that was aspects of it might jump out and say that was good, but there's always something that I could have done better. You know, planning wise.
But it's from a positive perspective. It's not that, oh man, I messed that up. It's like you enjoyed it. It was a great show. but there's little bells ringing about next time I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do this, or I need to try this, or I can still do this better, and I can pay more attention to this. And it's internal stuff, you know. And I get exactly where you're coming from. You know, that if the last gig is on Sunday, you know, Monday night the mix is going to be great, you know, because you've had time to fix it.
Yeah, well, it's also not fixing it, getting into a groove that, okay, it's working, it's fine, but then afterwards you'll sit back and say, you know what, I should have changed that D40 for a 421 on the guitar, because a 421 would have given me that edge at 2K5 instead of me boosting it the whole time on the console. It's something you know there's something not sitting right, and a quick mic change between show 1 and 2 would have fixed it. But okay, now it's working, let's not mess with it. A lot of times when I look back, that stuff I would have changed. You know, it's like, no, it's a gain thing. There is a monitor guy. It's not going to affect everybody. Everybody's know that there's a change on stage. There might be a little bit of a gain issue and an EQ issue. We can fix it on the fly, but it'll be better for the gig.
Yeah, but you communicate that to everybody.
Exactly. But I got into it where, you know, it's working now. Let's not mess with it. And I think that's a lot of times I would have gone back. That's some of the plays where I should have, you know what, between the songs, just change that mic for me, please, man. Just like, guys on stage, just change the mic. It'll be better for me.
Yeah.
And then instead of going, no, it's working, just leave it.
But this is where the communication, the relationship comes in. If you're talking about a guitarist, for example, if you have a guitarist and he's playing, everything's fine, his monitoring's happy, he's sitting in a gig, and a tech runs up and swaps a mic. You know, if you have a relationship and he says, what you're doing, he says, Marius asked me to change it, the guy's mentally settled. You know, but if there's no relationship, he's like freaking out. Like, why are you changing my mind? Everything's working. You're going to mess up my sound. You know, there's like this panic that can set in. You know, so I've been in situations where I've had that, where I've not done changes because I didn't want to freak out people, because I haven't had it. Then I'll rather wait for the end of the show, maybe for the next show, have an opportunity to speak to the person, you know, take it from that perspective. But I agree with you. They are, and the way that we listen, and that little element that you were talking about, no one else is experiencing it the way you're experiencing it. You know, there's no audience member sitting there going there, oh, I can hear he's boosting that 2K, you know, you should have changed the mic. You know, this is stuff that we're learning. It's experience that we're building up. You know, unfortunately, you know, there's a lot of guys that, how can I get more experience? I want to get into this industry. And they're 19. And in their mind, by the time they hit 21, they want to be traveling, you know. It's like, no, this takes years. You know, it's like any, I can teach you knowledge, but the application of skill set is just time.
Skill comes with time. It's just time.
Yeah.
You can't just jump into something and think it's going to just, I mean, yeah, you got talent. There's a lot of brilliant engineers in this country.
Yeah.
Guys with good ears, you know, that can really mix. But when it comes to pressure, I've seen guys crumble. It's like when you get to a point where something goes wrong, or something that you, a lot of, especially on digital consoles, finger trouble. A lot of guys like do something quickly. They don't know the desk that well, and something goes wrong, and then you see them the guy fall off the horse very, very quickly. You know, it's like, that's experience to me. Being able to stand back and say, a sec, we've got an issue here. This is how we're going to fix it, and moving forward quickly without a rant and without falling to pieces and not being able to control the situation.
Yeah, Dave made a good comment here. You know, a live show is a dynamic that is a once-off and determined by the social dynamics, physiology, and mood of the day. When it clicks, it clicks. You know, and that's what it is. There's no pause button. There's no rewind. You know, and your ability to get the click happening based on your preparedness and your skill level and your experience and becomes easier and easier, if I could use it that way, because of, you know, the experience. Because the thing is, if you do something, and you mentioned it other, you know, you still get nerves before the first song of a big show. You know, I still get nerves. You know, and it's not a bad thing, but it's like a combination of excitement and all that kind of stuff. But it's the underlying security in that I've got the right crew. We've done the workflow. We've done the exercises. We've done the checks. Everything's going to work. You know, and it's having that sort of comfort around you, and that's why when you do a certain kind of show, you want this guy doing that, you want this guy doing that, this guy doing that, because you know he's done it. You've seen him do it. You know when something happens in that scenario, he can react and respond to that you know, in the right way, because he also knows the way you want stuff, you know, because my crew operates in a certain way, your crew operates in a certain way to deliver whatever the overall plan is.
Well, that comes. Guys learn your way of working on a gig. They learn your way of marking a sub mod. They learn your way of running a sub mod behind a drum kit. How you wire up a keyboard. The cable's hanging straight down. Are you getting the flow of the stand? Are you fixing it up nicely? That's how you teach people. You go onto stage, guys, this is the way I want it done. And then people follow your lead. That's the way the industry works. At the end of the day, it's coming back to what I said earlier, Cristo, crew. The amount of guys that I've worked with in South Africa, there's too many to mention, but there's so many brilliant people, and it's the guys I feel for at the moment. It was what we're going through, not having been able to get there and hang those massive arrays and getting those. I mean, I sat today and thinking about wiring up front of ours back in the day when we ran analog. I mean, Kevin had the most brilliant outboard kit. It was Drama's PS201s. We had the best compressors, racks and racks and racks of stuff. But I mean, it took me a day to wire up the Scospel, a day to get my inserts done.
Yeah.
I just put the stuff up. And I think back of that, I miss those days, man. I miss it when you put in, you know, and then something doesn't work. Oh, this tips and ring return is wrong way around. You know, the insert's wrong way around because there's 2 jacks instead of 1. It's not the unbalanced insert, it's the balanced insert. And, you know, you prepping and you get to a venue and you got the wrong
cable.
Wrong insert mod. You got a tips and ring return instead of 2 balance cables. You get those things. I miss it, man.
But if you think about it, I mean, in a way, what you did there when you wired up front of house, it was physical patching. It would take you a day. But a show like that still takes you a day. The only difference is a lot of the patching side of things is just a click and a drag with a mouse, but you're planning your layouts, all the different workflows, and accommodating yourself onto a smaller footprint and a workflow. But you still have to do just as much planning and just much preparation, and still have a look at all the same stuff.
Nothing's changed. It's the question of the physical side is a lot less.
Yeah.
It still takes you a day. I mean, it comes back to you got 3 days to set it up, a gig up. It'll take you 3 days, but you can do the same gig in 1 day.
Yeah. I sometimes worry about the amount of time we give guys, because you give them a task and you tell them the time period, and he'll take that time period. Yeah. You know, that for me, for youngsters, yeah, it gets my hair up when, you know, there's things that we can be doing, and because there's no time pressure, they just, you know, the dreaded word of cell phone comes to mind. You know, because, you know, the guy's sitting in the corner on the cell phone and all this kind of stuff. So we face other challenges today that we didn't face 20 years ago, you know, from that perspective. You know, 20 years ago when you had a stage crew and the guy was missing, it's because he was either drinking or he'd run off to go and eat something. Now, the guy's there, but he's not there because he's there. You know, that's a big thing for me. Yeah.
It's a big thing. Cell phones and concentration on gigs. Yeah, times have changed, but I mean, the sad thing for me is the situation we're in at the moment. We're all sitting at home.
See a comment from Johan last there. Thanks for giving the musos some credit, Marius. It's the team. Yeah.
Was Johan?
Yeah.
Dude, I mean, how many gigs? And there's hundreds and hundreds of musicians in this country. That, I mean, Cristo, you've worked overseas. I've worked overseas. There's something about the homegrown guys. It's just, you know, you can throw something at them and they make it happen.
Yeah.
It's a different thing.
It's ethical work ethics, you know.
Yeah.
No, and I made a big deal about this the other night. I was talking about doing broadcast mixing and all that, and I made a massive deal about the one thing that there's only one thing that makes a broadcast mix work, and that's the musos on the stage. You know, if they're not gelling, if they're not bringing it, and if it's not produced well, I can sit and do what I want. I'm hacking this thing to death, and I'm trying to acclimatize to a dynamic that's not settling and all those kind of things, because musos are inconsistent. And, you know, but you put solid band. If you think about that band, I mean, the current guys are great, and I have no problem with them, but I'm going to experience I had with the guys, you know, with Johan Lars, Neil Ettridge, Denny Lalouette, Jethro, who's passed away. You know, who am I missing? The brass guys, you know, Bez, all those guys. You know, those guys just sat like amazingly, you know, and they clicked and it worked, and it made, from a mixing perspective, it just gave you so much freedom to do your part well.
You think you walk into a venue and like you got Neil or Rob or whoever on kit, you know the guy's style. It's funny how an engineer adapts. You know what Rob's capable of, what Neil's doing, and you approach it favoring the muso, if I can call it that. Favoring the muso, you get the pre-EQs done and whatever, and then the gig starts happening, and there's 5 or 6 or 8 or 12 people on stage. It sounds like they've been playing together for 30 years. And you know, how do they do it? And then you could ask the question, guys, when did you rehearse? No, we didn't. We just...
we got sent every... These days, we got the files on Dropbox and we're playing.
And you go, how do you do that? And I haven't even seen that overseas, man. It's just next level.
Yeah.
Guys are good. And at the end of the day, coming back to comment on what Johan just said, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have work, man.
Exactly.
So the music is what pumps my veins. That's what I live for. I mean, everybody can do a corporate, and I'm not knocking it. But I mean, you and I both are privileged to have done more music than corporate most of our careers. And if it wasn't for those guys, the musos, you know, we wouldn't have been able to achieve what we did and have the fun that we did. And
I mean, some of my best relationships in this industry. I mean, I've got good relationship with a lot of guys, but musicians, I've built solid relationship with a lot of musos, you know, and it's from a respect perspective. It starts from just good communication, good respect, but then it turns into friendships, you know, and it's, you know,
back in the day, Mongile Kumalo was still touring. It was Fana Zulu, it was Vusi Kumalo. You know, those guys became friends. I mean, Louis Maslango, Tembam Keys, you know, they were buddies. They weren't musos. You know, it's like you can sit down after the gig and have a beer together and have a chat about, you know, it progressed into something that the mutual respect in the industry has gone a long way.
Yeah.
I just hope things turn around so we all can get back onto stage and do what we do best, man.
Yeah.
Worrying times, but I'm not going into that now. But yeah, as soon as this thing lifts, I just hope everybody gets swamped with work, man.
Yeah, there's a question here. I just want to make sure that we answer everybody's questions. Johan's behind the scenes running the show for us, so he's the one commenting and grabbing all your questions for us. I'm not quite sure how to say your name, sir. I apologize. Yvona, something like that. He's asking a two-part question. His second part is in the new day with the digital consoles coming out now, and how do you get to learn them? I'm quite sure they don't just give them away and all that kind of stuff, and it's a huge capital. So the nice thing with almost all the digital console suppliers, if you go DWR with Digico and Waldemar with Soundcraft and Avid and AudioSure with Analog, Alan Heath, you know, Stage Audio with Yamaha. All of them do training. All of them offer training. You know, if you phone up and speak to one of the guys and say, listen, when's your next training course? There will be one. And, you know, or just ask them if there's one in the showroom you can come and play with. You know, I fortunately have good relationships where, you know, I phoned up Carl before and listen, is your demo console available? You know, can I play with it? You know, and so forth. So it's you got to take the opportunities. They are there. There's a lot of training, not just on consoles. I mean, most of these guys are offering. I mean, even Soundcraft now. Gabriel's doing every day 10 o'clock. He's doing sessions online, which are great on the Soundcraft webpage. And if you remember, like we said earlier, it's like driving a car. If you know what you want to achieve, it's not about learning how to mix. It's about learning how does this device do what I need it to do. So that's what you need to look at, and that's the best way to learn it as well. Is take an application that if you do corporates a lot, how would I do that corporate on this console? If you do bands, or if you've got a band file, how would I do that on this console? And then run that. You know, it's no sense just going through menus and stuff. You've got to do it practical. And then Paul Smith makes a comment that the Joe Niemand Night of Light, was a good one for Marius. You know, real ball breaker.
Yeah.
I remember that setup.
Yeah, well, that was the first show in the round in the Dome ever.
Yeah,
And we had
in what, 2 days?
we loaded in on a Monday morning, and the show was a Tuesday night. Yeah, that was no sleep for basically 3 days, from the Sunday night offloading, waiting to get into the Dome, just standing by, and then just pushing boxes in. It was still Stan Shilliday and Will and Nathan and the guys from Stage Audio Works. We all pulled together to make that one work. Full orchestra in the round. It was.
I brought you something there. I think it was a Big Ben or something. I brought you a clocking device. So I just stuck my head in there for a couple of hours. But yeah.
That was a massive gig. And I mean, the vision of Joe Niemand on that was just insane.
I remember the one gig, and I think you were actually at it. It was 1998. It was one of the first. I did a bunch of church services in the Dome when they still had the water fountain. Not everybody even knows.
Yeah.
You know, the red line that's there with the casino underneath the old ballroom. That was the water fountain. And we did a Rhema service in there. I think it was the Easter service. And I used the Series 5, the monitor console at front of house, because we didn't do a monitor land. I did it from front of house. And we did all 64 alphas in a single cluster above the stage. And we put the stage in front of the rock feature. So we had a 270 round. You remember that? Because you were at Stylus at that point. I think you were there with helping with the PA.
I hung the PA there, yeah.
Yeah, we did the golf ball.
Yeah.
That was still one of the best results I've had in the Dome almost ever. You know, it's a single point source. It was the S2s on the floor and Series 5 at front of house, and it sounded amazing.
Yeah. So my opinion, going back to the point source days, Cristo, you can't fault it. There was from 850s to Nexa Alphas, Nexa Alpha E's, flashlight, floodlights. It was really good stuff. It was a pain in the butt to get it off the truck and in the air.
Yeah, and when you've hung 3 layers and realize you've got a clip wrong, you got to drop all 3 again and then go back up.
Yeah, no, that was the days, man.
Yeah, no, I remember that. Adrian's made a comment here. What advice would you give a young talent who wants to get into the live sound industry, I suppose? And by young talent, I'm obviously either a junior sound guy or something like that, I presume. Advice?
Get into the game. It's just like contact rental companies, offer your services. There might not always be a position available. If you can get into an audio company, it's just start from the bottom, work your way up. If you can't get into a company full-time employed, offer your services. And if you're worth your salt, the guys will grab you. If you show them that you want to do the job and you're willing to get your hands dirty, you will call it drafted. Guys will look at you. It's just getting out there, getting exposure. Even, I mean, I know, I'm not going to names now. I've got 2 guys that's currently shadowing me on gigs that just rock up. There's no talk about money or billing afterwards. They just want to be there. That shows me a guy he wants to be part of this. And then usually when that happens, 3rd or 4th time, I'll pull him in as a crew member, and you'll quickly sift through, see where his strong points is. Everybody wants to be an engineer. Everybody wants to be a front of house engineer, unfortunately, but it doesn't work that way. It took me years before I mixed bands. Years. I mean, the experience, first of all, we back in the day, we just didn't jump on a console and start mixing. No. We had to click the cables, load the trucks, set up the gigs, get the PA up and running, do the amps, do the malts, mark the malts.
Yeah.
We had to do all that before we started mixing jumping on consoles and mixing shows. So if you want to learn, my advice is learn the basics first. So when things go squiff, you can sort out the problem, because that's where knowledge comes from. You have to do the groundwork to be able to get behind a console.
Yeah.
So if you want to be the best engineer around, then you got to put in the groundwork first. You got to know how to load a truck, because loading a truck is crucial. People don't quite understand it. I mean, you got to Tetris pack that thing so nothing breaks.
Yeah. I think for me, a similar comment that and that I make, and you made the comment about loading a truck. With the young guys, I start before loading the truck. prep lists, checking gear, you know, because once you load the truck and you close the doors, you know, you're wasting my diesel if we have to go back to the office, you know, and if my staff is watching, they know how I feel about that. But it's, you know, and it's, you can't take, if you're involved in the production, even at a low level, and you have the privilege of seeing paperwork and seeing stuff, ask questions, get involved. Because if you get asked pitch up at a gig, you know, and you don't do any prep, even if you're a stage crew, you know, if someone books you, you can ask for band riders, patch lists and all that, so that you can prepare yourself and print them out and get ready. You know, I know that you print them out, we print them out, send them to crew, but then get there, study them, know them. Don't wait. I mean, you will be given instruction, but don't wait until someone tells you what to do. No, there's a fine line between initiative and just sticking your nose where it doesn't belong. But
that's the big English word, is initiative.
Yeah.
We both do it. I mean, my freelancers get emails with riders and call sheets and rehearsals. That, you know, when you walk into a venue and you're not prepared, it's the most lost you can feel.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't know what you got to do, you don't know where the stage is, you don't know where the PA is going to hang. If that groundwork hasn't been done, you feel lost and you don't feel in control.
Yeah. So
the more people you empower, the more people you put in control, so they know what's going on in the room, in the venue, the easier things are.
And if you're a youngster, and you might not be, you know, you might be the newest oak on the crew, but absorb all this information. You might not be the guy hanging the PA, you might not be the guy patching or mixing, but absorb all the information, because then you can place it and you can have perspective on what does it take to be that guy, what does it take to be that guy. You know, and you can get a lot of this by just, like Marius says, pitching up, observing gigs, you know, asking questions, asking the right questions. I mean, I'm a big sort of champion for pitch up. You know, if you pitch up at my office, knock on the door and say, listen, I'm here to learn, they'll let you in. My staff are actually briefed on what to do with guys like that. There's information forms, get them in. The first thing we do is we get to know you. You know, we ask questions. Okay, I'm not just going to let any riff-raff in there, you know. We've got security protocols, but you know, but it literally is like that. And I've got a lot of students that I say that to. And if you take it, Brendan, who's now my warehouse manager, that's what he did. He pitched up. He wasn't getting paid. He just hung around, started sticking his nose in, you know, and I think it was 8 or 9 months before he started getting any money. And now he's employed and running the warehouse. You know, but it's just from being there, showing your reliability, showing your attitude, gelling well with team.
That's what it's all about, man.
Yeah.
For any young guy, if you ask me, there's a lot of companies out there. If you can't get the break into a company, you don't get the permanent employment. If you show the guts and the drive to go in and say, listen, I'm not getting paid for this, but I'm going to get stuck into this and help on this gig. Load in, load out. Somebody will notice you. And that's where it grows. Because at the end of the day, the only person that's going to push you into this industry is yourself.
Yeah.
And the willingness to ask questions and learn from guys that know. Ask questions. I've got a very interesting question here from Ben, asking, in some companies and shows, the new guys get some resistance, if that's a proper word to use, from some of the guys who've been in the company for a while. That's a common thing, man. That to me is a personality. If you it's the way I am. If you walk into an environment that you're unfamiliar with, I stand back, absorb, look at the situation, analyze the situation, and then apply yourself accordingly. Avoid. I mean, I'm the biggest. I hate confrontation. I'm not a confrontational person. So the moment when I was in the same position like Ben describes there, back in the day when you start as a nobody, you know, at the State Theatre, where you get told to go fetch a Macrotech 1200 amplifier at the storeroom, and you come back with a PM5000 power supply, because you don't know what it is. But up until today, I'll never live that down, because it was a little bit of humiliation, but it builds character. At the end of the day, it's still a joke today with a lot of people about what happened 28 years ago. But I learned to ask questions. I've never took anything out of that storeroom again without asking, listen, is this the right thing that I need to take to wherever I need to take it? So Ben, yeah, it's just, it's a difficult situation to be in. When you're a youngster going into a company, starting afresh, and there's some guys with some miles on them, and they will always look down there. You'll always be the new guy until you prove yourself. Thing
Yeah.
is just do not let it get you. Be humble, get stuck in and learn. Because before you wipe the tears out of your eyes, you've passed those guys that did the nasties, you know. So that's the way you got to look at it. See it as a challenge. See it as a challenge.
And I mean, it came up the other day as well in a conversation. Unfortunately, there are guys who are insecure in what they're doing. I've come against guys where I might not have been under them, but you get an attitude of a guy at a venue when you come in as a guest or engineer or something like that. And you know, I'm not bringing anything to the table from that perspective. I'm there. I'm being paid to be there. I'm going to do my job. You know, there's no reason to have resistance from that perspective. And then it's just guys that are insecure because they feel that you like trying to take the limelight or push them out the way. You know, and then that same guy, if there's a youngster coming up, he's trying to protect his position. If anything, if I can tell Ben this, it's not going to last long. You know, those guys who are operating with insecurity and not, it's in the delivery of the goods. You know, if you can deliver, just keep your head down, believe in yourself first. You know, other people will believe in you as they see you develop. But if you don't believe in yourself, you're doubting and you're never going to get anywhere. So keep developing your skill, put your head down, do your job well. You will get noticed, like Marius said. But it's not, no one's going to hand it to you. You know, this is not some of the stuff I've gone through over the years and stuff, you know, I'm privileged enough that I've gone through it, and I try and give guys opportunities and give them a different experience into the industry. You know, with the guys with the right attitude. And if you look at the youngsters today with Academy of Sound Engineering, if I can bring this up quickly, you know, if you graduate from ASE, you don't have what it takes now to go in and rule the world, but you've got a foundation. And one of the big things I teach there is I would teach a lot of stuff about the attitude and all that. And you've got the right foundation to start at the bottom. You don't come in at the top. You still start at the bottom. You're going to have to climb the ladder, but you're more fit to climb the ladder. And I'm very proud to look at a lot of guys that have studied at different institutions, but especially the ASE guys, because that's where I'm obviously what I'm doing. And you see them develop. If you think like Rain, you know, look how quickly Rain got a very decent footprint in the industry, you know, Ramsden.
He's a very well respected freelancer.
Yeah, but I mean, he was out of ASE. He graduated, and I think it was 4 years before he was HOD audio stylist for a while.
Yeah,
something like that.
You know what? It took him a bit of time, but I mean, at this age, just from attitude.
That's what I'm saying. It's an attitude thing.
Rain Ramsden, just with his attitude. And listen, I'm going to shoot myself in the foot now. With guys like yourself and audio, when it comes to technical stuff, I mean, I know what I want to do, and I don't always rely on the latest technology to do it. You mentioned it earlier. You're one of the first guys that'll throw something new in because it makes your workflow better. It gives you a better result at the end of the day. I'm still old school that way. I'm hesitant to try something that's going to blow up in my face, and it takes me longer to do that adjustment and add new stuff in. And sitting with a guy like Rain Ramsden and Kyle and the guys and having chat, and the knowledge they've got way surpassed me just from a computer point of view, just from a programming point of view, running programs on a laptop. I could sometimes just stand back and go, all right, now I'm old. I know I'm old now because I can't do half the stuff they do. But 90% of the time, they get where I am. If Rain assists me on a gig like Starlight and he's my system tech, he knows I'm standing behind this. He knows what I want to achieve. And he fully respects that, and he'll work with me 100%. Half the time, he'll do stuff on delays that I don't even know about. And he'll come to me after and say, listen, I've done some changes that I thought. You go listen, and actually the call is good. But he doesn't, you know, the attitude from the young guys these days, and unfortunately, so not, a lot of the guys you work with, the CVs I get is, you get a CV from a guy that's 20 years old, and he's a sound engineer. Sorry, dude, I just don't get that. That's beyond me.
Yeah.
So I worked for 2 years before I got recognized as an engineer that could mix bands. It's unfortunately, if you're willing to do the grind work, you know, get your elbows dirty and get your knees dirty, get the job done first, and get into that headspace where I know the basics so I can do what I need to do, because all of us achieved what we achieved because we know the basics. We went through the grind. The basics of audio is sorted. you know, and then the application differs from person to person. But without that knowledge of years of doing the groundwork, doing the stages and whatever, knowing how it works, wouldn't have put you in the comfortable position at front of us that you trust and you can achieve your goal, because your knowledge has been passed on to guys on stage and they're doing what you want them to do to your standard.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I think that makes perfect sense. And I think that's the, and I don't want guys to take this from a negative perspective. If you're a young guy, if you're 20 years old, you know, if you've got the drive to do it, you keep developing your skill. You might, and you are a very creative guy. You can work great, but you have to be willing to work it and get into the industry, because you must remember when you're looking for work, or if you're looking for opportunities, the opportunities that exist there were not catered or custom designed for you. If I have a company and I need a certain job done and you knock on my door, you're probably not coming with that in mind, but that's what I need now. And if your attitude is right, you'll do that to the best of your ability, and that'll open the door, it'll get you in the door, and I'll see that, and it'll give you an opportunity. But if you walk in going, well, I'm a guy, I'm a mix engineer, no, I don't do that. Or you say, oh, fine, I'll do that, but I can see in your attitude, you know, that'll be our last relationship. I've had lots of one-nighters where guys come in and, you know, they do one gig with us and never again. And it's not a skill level. That's something you must understand.
Actually, nothing to do with skill.
Nothing to do with skill. If you don't gel with the crew and your attitude stinks, I'm just not going to call you back. You know, that's what it is.
You mentioned those guys, actually, you pick it up very quickly with musicians as well, because you put that guy on stage, it rubs off on everybody. And both of us get first-hand experience in that. If you've got a bad apple on stage, you know, that guy it shows very quickly, and he won't last.
Mm.
Unfortunately, now today, it's once again, you got to get your hands dirty. You got to do the groundwork and know what it's all about, and that's how you earn respect with your co-workers and your peers, and that's how you excel into the next level. I mean, there's a lot of guys, like you mentioned earlier. You got Revel. Revel doesn't like doing front of house. He's a monitor guy, and in my opinion, monitor engineer is the most difficult, from an engineering point of view, is the most difficult job. You know, as a front of house guy, you got one mix to worry about. And as long as you go with the attitude that you're not going to get influenced by and try and impress the 5,000 people that surround you, because that's not what it's about. You're not a band member. You're not there to shine. You're there to relay the message from stage. That's point number one. The monitor guy has got anything from 5 to 20 people to look after. And each one of those got a little niche and a little requirement of his own that you got to service and adhere to.
Mm.
So, you know, and monitor guys working with RF guys, you know, and not having to run around stage, and your stage guys taking control of stage. So your monitor guy doesn't have to worry about the stage. He does what he needs to do. It's all just, if you go into any one of these disciplines, at the end of the day, whatever you choose to do, the groundwork still needs to be done. Because if you get known as a guy that can get his hand dirty, and you can tell him, can you move that monitor for me in song number 2, 3 meters across for the sax solo? And you got 4 guys sticking their hands up that are willing to do it. Those 4 guys will excel. The guys that don't put their hands up is the guys that will fall off the wagon at some stage.
Yeah. Michael Woodland make a good comment here. You know, you won't be a new guy forever. So it's also some encouragement for the youngsters.
Cool.
You know, just, you know, time goes quickly. I mean, I think someone asked me the other day, what would I teach myself, 20 years ago? Obviously nothing that I know now is applicable back then because the tech didn't exist. But just, I'm fortunate. I'm like Marius. I'm not confrontational. By nature, I'm a very shy guy. It's amazing that I'm doing what I'm doing. Having I understood very early the importance of attitude and relationship, and it just happens to be, one of my strong points. And the humility to come in, understand my role in a situation, and that's one side of it. But don't forget the importance of the technical development. I mean, I'm still learning stuff, even getting these things going. I'm learning things. I'm learning tech. I'm doing this, and I'm pushing my guys and my staff in the same direction. Guys, keep improving, keep learning. Don't get stagnant. Something I learned from my dad. If you're not working yourself out of a job, you're doing something wrong. If you just keep doing the same thing over and over and over, that means you're not teaching, you're not empowering other guys, you're not improving, you know. So there has to be that ability, and that comes with time, you know. So I don't have a lot of regrets. I mean, there's some gigs I think back on, I think, oh, that could have been better, that could have been better, that could have been better. But all in all, you know, I think we're in a good space, you know, where we are. I'm still enjoying what I'm doing. I still get a huge rush out of getting behind a console, whether it's on monitors or broadcast or front of house, you know, and there's excitement, there's nerves, like you say, you know, and if it clicks, like Dave was saying in his comment, when it clicks and it clicks, man, oh, there's nothing that beats that feeling. You know?
I agree with you. I don't think, I mean, we've had discussions with other people in other industries. I mean, I don't think anything in the world could give you the type of job satisfaction that we get. When you stand in front of a console and something just gels and it works for you, that there's nothing that can replace it. I think the closest will be a fighter pilot dodging a missile or something. But I don't think I've never encountered anybody that can describe the type of job satisfaction that we get. And it's a never-ending thing. I mean, every day is different.
Yeah.
We're not stuck in an office. The environment is constantly changing. The challenges get bigger. Every gig is different. It's never the same. So it's just such a fascinating world to live in the audio world as a pro audio guy. And the opportunities for self-growth and what's the word I'm looking for? Sculpturing your own personality into being somebody better, you know. I don't think there's a better industry to do it in. I mean, this industry can make or break you. I mean, it's not easy on your personal life. It's demanding on every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
The job satisfaction is immense. Once you pull it off and it works, it kicks, man. It's
I mean, I don't think I wouldn't put myself through the stress of this work if I didn't love it. You know, if I didn't enjoy what I was doing.
I think we're all a little bit off.
Yeah, some screws are a little bit loose.
I mean, I've heard it from a lot of people that you got to be somewhat thing to actually do what we do. And if that be the case, so be it. But I mean, I'm getting a kick. And I love what I do. I love what I do every second. The people I work with, the camaraderie, walking away from a gig when that truck doors close.
Yeah. At
7 a.m., walk and say, guys, job well done. You've got a happy client, you've got a happy band, happy musicians. The crew's tired, but that sense of fulfillment is unparalleled. It's just unreal. And if anybody wants to get into this game, I tell you what, it's a ride, man. It is a vibe.
Yeah. Tolani's asking, have you guys ever had a bad gig where the console froze or gear just decided to rest for the day?
How much time has he got?
How much time? Yeah, how much time have you got? I've had some really bad experiences with kit, you know, and not all of it people know about. I mean, some stuff happens and you panic and you do stuff and you work around problems and you reroute and you're doing stuff and, you know, because the gig's got to happen. You know, I've had some really dumb stuff that's happened. I remember I was helping, I'm not going to name names, I was helping someone get onto a new console and we were doing a stadium gig and everything had settled, the band had just gone off stage, the MC's up talking, and I'm standing next to the console, the other engineer's engineering, I've set up for him, and I just feel this wet spray over my arm, and I'm like, what's that? And I look back, and the guy had taken his can of Sprite, and taken a big sip, and there was a bee in, and he spat it out over the brand new console. And as I looked back, it was a click, 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 poof, console gone, you know, full stadium full of people. And he just goes, he literally sat down, froze up, didn't know what to do. You know, I just pulled the trigger. I knew there was a little a small console in the van, pulled it out, didn't even mute amps, yanked out, plugged in, got in, pushed up, faders up, sound, you know, in a matter of about 2 minutes. You know, and it's not something you want to happen to someone, but your ability to handle and deal with those scenarios, you know, things happen.
You remember a little... I believe you did mention it in one of your previous chats about my little firmware upgrade before a final race. I've done that.
I'll never. I didn't want to bring that up. I thought about bringing that up earlier.
Change firmware on any piece of gear.
No, but you put, okay, so what happened is Marius ran, 4 days of rehearsals before Starlight. And then before the evening of the show day, he decided to
No, that wasn't
upgrade.
Starlight, dude. That was
That was Starlight.
ETV's 10th birthday. Oh, no. You're talking about the Vista Five's first gig in
Yes.
SA. Oh, yeah, no, that was Mr. Urdugan and myself's little sweaty moments. But I'm talking about the one that I did the upgrade was ETV's 10th birthday. Oh, however many years that
On the
ago,
VI?
that was on the VI6 when I upgraded
okay.
to Premier.
Yes.
The core didn't want to.
Did want to boot.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, I was in the Standard Bank Arena doing one of those massive things for Dave O'Maloney still. When the venue got hit by lightning, and the arresters didn't work. The voltage arresters, it takes the excess voltage to ground, didn't work, and it sent everything down. If I remember correctly, it was the blue phase or the white phase. I can't remember. Popped 12 Crown VZ 5000s on the subs, fried all the subs, and console, and then everything else on that phase, which was control in front of us. So the smoke came out of my SPX 990 Yamaha effects unit. I mean, that smoked like no hazer can, man. And everything just stopped working. And they just launched the Eon. I don't know if you remember the first
the
batch
G1,
of
the grey ones.
That
That was 97.
Yeah, you got a little plastic mixer that came with 2 speakers. Remember a little plastic grey JBL mixer that came with 2. I finished the show on that, man, with only the M3s and the B1s on the Alpha rig working.
Sure.
And lots of little.
Yeah, I remember with John Layden, we did a all Africa like a human rights tour, and we set up. It was all Quieter Music with 999 Studios with Arthur, and it was we'd set up backstage. It was all DAT. The guys produced their DATs, and they've got HF going to like 24K, so you've got to be limiting your HF and da 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 da. And I left the one. I mean, we'd done a couple of shows in a row, and we were in Pietermaritzburg. And I walked away from the guy that was running his artist, and he decided to go full tilt on the low end, and he just cranked the low end, and he blew all my double 18s on the PA in one thud. And now you got 15,000 people at a Quieto gig, and you got no subs. It doesn't quite work,
No.
Our next, and it was towards the end of the gig, so we had to deal with that. Arthur was on stage at that point, and I had one side full sub which I just cranked towards him so he could feel it, and he just kept going. And then the next morning we had another show, so I had to overnight some subs out of Joburg to get to Durban, and it's not fun,
Yeah,
but we've had stuff happen.
It's like Dave earlier said, it's standing, getting the people on their feet, the lights are up, the house lights are down, and curtains raised, or whatever situation you're in, and the gig is going 99.9%. Nobody knows what's going on. Things could go completely sideways, and the show just goes on, man. That's what it's about. And it's usually these ones that the lasting memories of gigs, of SM12, Kopi in 97. Lighting guys up top kicked over a beer onto a SM12. It didn't even go, it just went poof, gone. In the middle of
that Soundcorp SM12, I know that console.
Yeah,
isn't that the console with the round base indent on the back on channels 24 or something?
Stylus. It was Stylus SM12. SM12.
Oh, okay, but Soundcorp's one's had this indent on the back. Remember that from a mic stand that was thrown at someone.
That was when Shaw was there. When what was her name?
I wasn't going to mention names.
Well, you can. She's not going to sue me. Grace Jones threw a mic stand at Shaw.
I think it hit channel 23 and 24.
It was a day.
Yeah, I remember because we used that. When I heard about that story when we used that console on the Mango Groove tour, and we set up in Standard Bank Arena, and Charles was actually on monitors then still. And then we're patching and we're skipping channel 23 and 24 on the SM12. I'm like, why are you skipping 2 channels? They don't work. There's a big mic indent on the back.
Yeah,
that was funny.
Funny
so we've had some good stories. I mean, we've had some good feedback. We've been going for an hour and a half now. There haven't been any. I mean, we've been trying to get to all of your questions. If we've missed your questions or something like that, you're welcome to. We'll try and go through the comments later. I've had a good chat. I think this has been great. We can go for hours and hours and hours, but like you said, everything has got, 2 hours of stories behind it. From my side, I just want to say thank you for joining me. I think this has been great fun. Great time catching up. I've never heard these stories in English. That's good.
It's weird, eh?
It's very weird, yeah.
Weird. Well, if I can, one last thing to all the guys out there, just knuckle down, guys. We're going to work through this. Be positive. This can't last forever. It won't last forever. We got a strong industry. Things will come back into what it was. It might take a bit of time, but yeah, man, let's just huddle together as an industry, as friends, and help each other out. If you know about somebody that's suffering, please, man, just lend a helping hand. There's a lot of people you can phone, a lot of people that care.
Yeah, reach out.
Just look after each other. We're gonna get through this, man. It's nice to talk about it, but it's better to do it.
Yeah.
We all miss just doing the gigs. So yeah, well, thank you for having me, Cristo.
It's a pleasure, man.
Talking Johan and behind the scenes. That beard is ridiculous. You said to put a picture up.
Yeah,
I didn't see you. Yeah,
Johan's been in lockdown for about 7 years now. His beard is down to his belly button. It's funny.
Yeah, I don't know what he's drinking, Doc Martin or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
Got manure in the mornings. Thanks,
And,
man.
It was fun. All the guys out there, me, thank you for everything, and thanks for all the gigs, man. Hopefully there's lots more to come.
Yeah, Willem is saying thanks for the education. I think one of the biggest Willem ever learnt from me and you was, before show day, what don't you do? It's Sun City.
Let him answer that.
Yeah, see, Willem will own up to that one in the chat. What don't you do before show day at Sun City, Willem?
It was Willem, man. Willem is a wonderful, wonderful human being, man.
Yeah.
If anybody knows Willem, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's a soldier.
Anyway, but thank you, appreciate it.
Actually, I'm gonna get this right now. Will you let me know
What?
what his answer is going to be? What his answer?
No, he must answer in the chat here. Let's see if he. Let's give him 5 minutes. Otherwise, it's not. No, he's just laughing. No, don't laugh. Tell people.
Yeah. What's the first? Come on, Willem, answer us.
Yeah, Willem.
Is that putting him on the spot?
Shame.
Thank you, guys.
He probably can't type now because he's shaking too much.
It's been fun, and we'll see you on the flip side.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Just while I've got you, before we say goodbye, before I go off air, tomorrow night I've invited a friend of mine, Brendan Ross. All of you know him, played for Johnny Clegg, saxophone player, phenomenal guy. I'll put a link up to his Facebook page. We've done it before. Plays a mean cowbell. And it's just from a musician's perspective. I mean, we've been talking about tech for ages now, but from a musician's perspective, what and interacting with us as an industry, these feelings and insight into that, because he's a brilliant musician and an all-round person. So it's going to be a great chat with him. Willem is owned up. Drinking.
Yeah, good one, Willem.
There we go.
We're not going to elaborate on that, but
yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Thank you, Marius. Yeah, thank you, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Like our page. Check out our YouTube channel as well. And we'll see you again.
Thanks, guys, what you're doing for the industry. It's good.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Well recognized.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys. Have a good evening.
You too. See you guys.
Cheers.